Hello, my name is Lizzie. Each week I'm bringing along an origami fold, and that's to help encourage well-being. They're particularly dedicated, these films, to staff who work in hospitals. I work in UCH, but these films are for everybody as well. It's a really difficult time during this uncertain, unsettling time, and we're having to be apart so much more, which is the right thing to do, but it's also quite hard for ourselves as well. So origami is a beautiful way of bringing connection, and this week's a very special one. I'm going to make daisies, full daisies, and this is to mark and to celebrate the day, what's called the Daisy Award, which is an international recognition of nurses and midwives and the outstanding clinical skills that they have, that knowledge, but also their extraordinary compassion and care. And this is a time more than ever that we should be celebrating that absolute care, putting others, the needs of others first, and the wonderful work that they do. And also to encourage them to look after themselves. They deserve that too. So then the daisies, I have actually, last year I taught to nurses on site, but now I'm having to do this remote. But actually this is quite wonderful because I can share with you the daisy fold. Now it's a little bit more of a complicated one than the ones I'd normally show, but you know what? I reckon that's so appropriate because nurses put in so much hard work, dedication and care, and origami is all about taking time, taking a lot of care, and we're going to make something wonderful from it. So I hope you can make a daisy. You might want to grab like a yellow pencils to be able to give a heart to your daisy that looks like this. So I'm going to take you through this journey. It'll take a little while, but I hope you're going to enjoy it. As always, it really is a journey and a wonderful chance to learn together. Right, so I'm going to move the camera around and direct it down. That's it, my rather colourful background. So to make the daisies, first of all, always get a space that's nice for pressing on. So I get my little board, maybe you've got a little table, and each time I'm going to show you how to fold from just a standard piece of paper that you'd have wherever you are. Or you could use scrap paper. So if you're in the UK, maybe A4 paper. If you're elsewhere, you might use letter paper. So we're going to start off first of all by making a square. That's the basis. So if you take a corner and bring it over in a straight line. And there's lots of a wonderful video showing you how to do origami. But I'm hoping this brings you a little bit, something a bit more personal. You're seeing a little bit of me in my home and encouraging that a little bit more personal, that we need that connection with others. So I hope this is almost a little bit of company that we're doing something special together. So we're going to remove this strip next. So turn it over and bring it back so it all lines up. And there you go. It seems possibly to be a traditional fold. We haven't been able to quite find the origins for this, but very much thank you to whoever has come up with this and for passing it on. So making a little nick there, and you should then be able to just tear it off. As always, if you make a good strong fold, not only does it let out a bit of tension, it will really mean that you can make some good origami. So we've done the diagonal already. Our next step is to do the other diagonal, and then after that we're going to do a little bit of colouring. So you could make a completely white daisy, but you probably want a bit of colour. Maybe you've got some colourful paper you could use, but I think white with the yellow heart's just right. There we go. So I've got the diagonals there. So I'm going to add some colour to the very middle of the flower. Got some pencils here. So roughly doing a centre. Don't know exactly what size, but it's something like this. I'm going to add a bit more yellow. I'm just using colouring pencils. Shading it a little bit, so there's a little bit of change of tone. Hopefully that'll be about right. Maybe a tiny bit more. I do recommend you adding a bit of colour. Maybe you could use lots of different colours across your petals actually. Sometimes they can have nice bits of pink, can't they, as well, daisies. So I think I'll leave it there. You see I've done a nice little yellow centre to it. So our next step, that doesn't look like a daisy yet, is to turn it over, and we're going to do a horizontal and a vertical. And in a moment that will allow us to fold it up. So we do diagonals on one side, and now we're doing horizontal and vertical. And I always recommend people take your time. It's what makes it relaxing. And it also means you're more likely to be able to actually do it as well. I think quite often people feel they need to do things fast. And take your time, be precise. Let out that nice little fold. That's it. Right, you should be able to pick it up as it is, and you should be able to just push in the sides and it will form a square. If it's a triangle, then it's the wrong side that you're opening it, so flip it over, but you should be able to push it into a square, as I have done. So our next step is you've got these little flaps. Maybe if I turn it this way around, maybe lift it up for a little bit. So we've got these little flaps, almost like leaves of a book. If you put your finger in, I recommend putting your finger in, because what I want you to do is get rid of any little wrinkles and then flatten it down in a straight line. If you've made the lily with me, this is quite similar at this stage. So lots of pieces of origami go through the same steps at the start, and then they can go off in so many different directions. So you're sort of building on what others have discovered. So we've got one side there, turn it to the back. Same thing, lift up any of these flaps, put your finger in, and then squash it down. And make sure it's all lined up. I might in a moment lie this down, we'll see how I get on. I'm doing it to the camera, which is an interesting way of doing it. I don't recommend it, but it's quite nice to show you so directly. That's it. Turn through, leaf on another page. You've got another leaf sticking up, so again you can put your finger in and squash it down. This is going to be quite a big daisy, as we've seen before. And can you see I'm trying to line it all up nicely? There we go. But I recommend you do this on a surface, not up in the air like me. So I've got, you can see there's just one more sticking out here, so it almost leaves with a book. Flick through to get to the right page, and again you can put your finger in and then squash it down in a straight line. There we go. For all of this, I give good strong folds, because there's going to be many folds in this daisy, and as I said, be as accurate as possible, because again that will affect everything as to how balanced the flower looks as well, because if something drifts on one side it will drift out on them all. So this will be one for being nice and precise, really taking your time. So our next step, you see this is going to be the middle of the flower, somehow this is all going to end up being petals, is flick through, or again leaves of a book, until you get to the smooth side. Now when you get to the smooth side, I want you to take the top and fold it down to a straight line. And you see, again keeping it all nice and in the middle and nice and sharply up there. I think that's right. Can you see? And what that's doing is getting rid of all of these bits that stick up without cutting them off. That's it. Where possible, it's nice not to use scissors. So it's all from one neat piece of paper is an amazing thing. So again, the top of this, if you bring it down to straight lines, it's all lined up with the ones behind it. And again, recommend being nice and precise with all of this. You see, that's it. It's easier not to a camera, but to yourself, that's it. I have to say with origami, I love just enjoying every step, all the different shapes and patterns that emerge on the way. I find completely delightful. I'll show you in a moment the shape that hopefully that you've got as well. So Yeah, a little bit almost like a parachute at the moment. It is a three-dimensional thing, even though I'm keeping it stacked up flat. There we go. And we've just got at the moment one more, so you should be leafing through until you get to the smooth size. When it's smooth, fold it down. So hopefully you've got a fairly neat stack. Don't know how perfect my one is. As I said, a tiny bit harder. Upside down. Upside down, back to front. So you can see this is, as I said, this is a lovely, delightful structure already. Isn't that nice? It's a kind of, it could be a Christmas tree, couldn't it, at the moment? Lovely thing. I like looking inside it. Look at that, gorgeous. Really nice structures and shapes. It's all sculpture as well. Right, our next step. Right, back to being flat again. And I'd keep it fairly balanced as a little stack. What we're going to do is take the top and we're going to fold it in half, but I want this to stick over. Actually, maybe if I do it this way around. I'm going to bring it up like so. Sorry, I'm going to grab a cup of tea. So it sticks up a little bit, and that will later on help to form a nice curve of your flower. There we go. So give a good strong fold, actually, because we're going to really need those fold lines. We're going to be opening it up in a moment. I suppose you could fold it back the other way again, just to give it as strong a lines as possible, because I want to see those lines. There we go. Great. Right, next step is quite fun because we're going to open it all up completely. So it looks like we're just getting rid of it all. Open everything up, go carefully and gently. As I said, it's like a nice little parachute in there. Can you see? Nice on that side, but it's actually the inside that we're going to look at here. Undo it all. It's a nice hexagonal thing, I guess. So if we go for this plain side, which has got none of the little flaps inside, what we're wanting to do is get everything so that the lines, first of all, so that these little lines at the edge are what's called mountains, so sticking up. And these little lines here, I want you to straighten off. Let me see. You'll find yourself, it almost feels like you want to stick out your tongue when you're doing this because there's so much concentration. But what I'm trying to do is, at the moment the lines are there, but they're going up and down. I want the lines to stick up like that. So each of these convert to being a sticking up. So go to each side of these, this inner circle, as it were, and we're going to fold them so that they stick up. So you'll end up with a circle that's sticking up on all sides. I haven't found a quick way to do this, so I would suggest just being super patient with yourself, as I'm having to be. You might be able to sort of do two at a time like that. Do you see? As I said, this is not the simplest fold, but as I said, I think it's also very relevant for nurses that they don't go through whatever's quickest and easiest, do they? They're going to put in the effort. So I think this is a nice way to honour and to thank nurses. So I'm doing two at a time, like that. You should be able to just do that. As I said, you have to be very patient, very appropriate. I always wonder whether the word patient, being a patient and patient, is that a coincidence? I don't know what the origins are actually for patient, but I would guess it is relevant. So you see I've done that now, so that sticks up. Our next step is these little side bits. I also want those to stick up too. So some of them are valleys and some of them are mountains. I want them all to be mountain folds. So going through each one of these so it sticks up. as I said, you're going to have to be patient, but this is part of the joy of it. And it's also why I think origami gives you such a big buzz of achievement, is because you have to be very patient. There we go. Putting those all the right way up. Hope you can see what I'm doing. Okay, right, so now hopefully this thing we should be able to fold up again. And what we're going to do is push the middle in so that this sticks up. How am I going to do it? I'm wondering myself. It will eventually all work. As I said, you have to be very patient. I'm wondering how I normally do this. So it's like a little puzzle. I might maybe direct it down. I'm maybe being a bit ambitious doing this up in the air. Right. So you should start to be able to gather the sides in. And it will eventually all fold up. One of my more ambitious ones to share with you, isn't it? I think it looks a little bit like a lemon squeezer as well at this point. So I'm trying to sort of push in and fold up the sides. I'm afraid it is like a little bit of a puzzle. But as I said, be very patient and kind with yourself. This is appropriate for nurses as well. Because of that. Can you see it's beginning now to fold up there? So it will eventually fold up. Just got this side now to push in. And it's one of those things where you have to play around yourself to start to understand it. It's a physical kind of process, which is what makes it, I think, so deeply engaging as well. Because it's not just following instructions, you're having to understand it as well. Do you see? So actually, yeah, each of those sides needed to be nice and straight at the bottom in order to allow it to fold up. So what I've been trying to do is fold it all up. I hope you've managed that. I feel as if it was a little bit of a going through quite a process there, which is maybe not exactly the easiest, but it will eventually fold up to make a flat structure like this. So our next step is to take a side, and it's just one side, and fold it up into along that middle line, the straight line, like so. And what we're doing is sort of giving the side of the daisy, we're giving it that shape. And you're doing it nice and neatly up to the corner like that. You're only doing it on one side. So down on one side, leaf over to another, and it's the same thing, taking the bottom of it and folding it up. And as there are so many folds on this flower, do be really nice and precise and take your time. It's about that compassion and care. Attention to detail. That's it. Leaf through. You might at the back sort of also be turning through so that the pages keep balanced, as it were. So I have done it on this side, so again I need to do it on this side. So it's like just doing it on the one side each time. Again, keeping that lined up. Giving it a nice little point there. And doing that on each side. Next one. It feels like a lot, doesn't it? 8 petals. An octagon. There's normally with origami you're effectively dealing with a square for 4 sides. Suddenly you double it up to 8, it suddenly feels so much more. But a daisy does have lots of petals, so it's all appropriate. Right, turning through to the next side. And There we go. And keep it nice and straight there. We're not too far off. We're getting there. You're having to be very patient. That's it. Next side, as I said, 8 sides can feel like a lot, can't it? Again, keeping it on a straight line. Hope this is working for yours. And I think actually using, as we've done, this big piece of paper is a good idea, because I think if you're trying to do very precise things at a small scale, you'll find it's very hard. So bigger is a good place to start, and then with time you start wanting to do maybe smaller things. I know people make things like tiny cranes, or you can make a really small thing. So time, like if you want to give yourself more and more challenges are endless with origami. So hopefully it looks like this. It's now this sort of shape of the daisy, but it's not looking quite there yet. Right, in order to make the petals, you have it almost like a little tuck in between. So to do that, we're going to give a tiny little triangle in there. Now to do that, you only want a small triangle, because if it's quite big, it will make your flower won't be able to open up properly. But in effect, I'm bringing it down. Maybe again, I'll direct it down. I'm trying to give a small triangle. All right, to do that, take that middle bit and push it forward till it's sort of flat, like so, and then turn the page. So I'm taking the middle, pushing it down, but keeping it a small triangle, because actually if it runs all the way to the end, you'll find that your flower just won't open up. I've not yet found a really good way to explain this. I hope it's good enough, but it's basically a small triangle. When you're happy that it's just that little dip, folding it over to the next page, and so on. Again, 8 can feel like quite a lot. So bringing that little fold down. And you're also, of course, very welcome just to watch this and enjoy it too. If you're finding it frustrating, then you can either decide to persist and that you'll know you'll get there, or you can go, you know what, I'm just going to watch. Because this is intended for relaxation. So sometimes you're putting in a certain amount of tension there, and that's in its way relaxing too. So I'm adding a little triangle. I'm trying not to let it run up too much along the sides, because I know that will make the petals hard to open up. So I'm turning through the flower. Again, a little triangle, and then closing it round. Almost there, little triangle. I wouldn't normally show you one quite so complicated, but I felt we had to show the daisy for the Daisy Award. And it's all about that. Time and care, not taking the easiest option, which is something I encourage. Be ambitious. You can do it. And know that eventually you will get there. It's about giving yourself that permission. So I think I've just got one more side. And it is a hard one to get really symmetrical, this flower. But I think again worth it. So tucking that in, closing it. Right, it should hopefully look a bit like this. And in just a moment we're going to have a fun part, which is to open it up. Right, at the moment it's sort of daisy-like, but a little bit flattened. So how do you open up that middle? Right, to do it, you need to hold almost opposite petals. So I'm holding the base of the opposite petals, and I'm holding it quite strongly and firmly at the base, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them apart, and that starts to bring out the flower. Can you see? So again, I'm going to go to opposite petals, holding them strongly at the base, and then pull. And I keep doing this and rotating round. Hopefully middle of the flowers opening up. I have to hold it quite tight at the bottom. I'll go slowly and carefully. There we go. I think that's getting there. So I coloured it in about the right amount, didn't I? There we go. So that's the middle of it. So it's sort of done, but it still doesn't look quite like a daisy. So our next thing is to try to open up the petals a little bit. And I'm just putting my finger in and just trying to open them up. And you'll find as long as you go on to one, and the next one's needs doing. And as I said, it may well not be perfect, but be very kind to yourself. This is not the easiest one to do. And just enjoy the structure. So I'm just trying to open up each petal as I go along. And overall it forms a lovely, lovely structure. They look very striking. I've just sort of put them up around the place as well. They do also have a hole at the back too, so you could put in a wire or some kind of a stem. You could make a paper roll, or something like a pipe cleaner. Oh, I'm almost there. A bit more tea, I think. This is a long fold, isn't it? There we go. So hopefully you've got a lovely daisy. Play around with those petals. You'll find they need quite a bit of time and care to open them up. And I hope at the end you've managed to make your very own daisy. They're beautiful things. And yeah, so a huge thank you to the nurses. The immense effort, the compassion, the care that you give, and to midwives as well. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed that fold. It's been a journey, hasn't it? And I'm also doing live folds most Wednesdays as well at 2 o'clock. So if you're free, join me. There's something very special about doing things that are live as well, that we're there as a little group. Even if it's through a computer, it does work. So I hope you'll enjoy this. Thank you. Bye-bye.